I go to Jackson Heights, Queens, known by some as Little Colombia, every time I need a taste of Colombia. Most of my family lives in Colombia, so I hardly get to see them. I miss my family and the food they make, so I decided to go to Little Colombia to get a taste of home. First, I stopped by a restaurant and I ordered a colombiana and an empanada. When the waitress heard me speak Spanish with my Colombian Spanish accent, she greeted me with mi amor. I felt very comforted and taken care of. So this is a Colombiana la Nuestra, which is a Colombian soda. It is fizzy and sweet like any soda and tastes a bit like a cream soda and tea, but not quite. It's mostly flavored with a cola nut. It has a fruity, creamy undertone. Then the waitress brought me my empanada. Colombian empanadas are my number one comfort food. My abuela makes the best empanadas ever in the whole world, in my opinion, though I admit I'm pretty biased. My favorite type of empanadas are beef empanadas. They typically have pulled beef and either rice or potatoes inside. Then they are put into a corn dough and wrapped and fried. Because I'm an advocate for climate justice, people are often weary when they find out I eat meat. Yes, I am aware of the effects meat has on the environment, and long story short, I am not vegan or vegetarian because I have a history with disordered eating, and any sort of dietary restrictions triggers my brain back into the unhealthy way of interacting with food that I used to have, which is very dangerous for me. Another thing, when my abuela learned how to make empanadas and cook, she was living off the land in a sustainable way, farming in a very traditional, non-factory farming way where her family only took what they needed. There were no pesticides or fattening up any of the animals or any inhumane treatment of the animals. It was a way of living and eating that existed outside of the factory farming industry. My abuela says society needs to return to the way of getting food she used to practice, and I agree. So next on my comfort food tour, I stopped by a Panaderia, which is Spanish for bakery, to get some Pande Buenos. I love Pande Buenos. They are another massive comfort food for me. So Pande Buenos are pastries made out of cassava starch, cheese, and eggs. My mom and tias and abuela make them all the time, and they're typically a breakfast pastry eaten with Colombian hot chocolate. Sometimes they're filled with guava jam, which I love, but the one I'm eating here does not have any guava in it. Pande Buenos and hot chocolate are to some people in Colombia what cereal and milk are to Americans, an everyday go-to breakfast. My mom always has Pande Buenos ready every Sunday. Back when I was living with my parents before I went to college, I would have Pande Buenos pretty much every week, and we would get the starch and make them from scratch. In Seattle, where I live, there's not really a lot of Colombian places around, so you have to make them yourself. Next, I got some Colombian coffee hard candies. Coffee is vital to Colombia. Not only is it a huge export and industry in the country, but it's also a huge part of the culture. Kids in Colombia typically start drinking coffee from pretty young ages. I love all things coffee flavored. For me, caffeine doesn't really do the trick of giving me energy or keeping me awake at all, so I really just have it for the taste. I wasn't in the mood for real coffee at that moment, so I just got some coffee hard candies. And finally, I stopped by a small restaurant to get some buñuelos and Colombian hot chocolate. Being half Colombian has made me a bit insufferable when it comes to hot chocolate. I won't drink hot chocolate that comes from a packet. Because Colombian hot chocolate is such a cultural staple in a Colombian diet, I've gotten used to the way it's made traditionally, which is by breaking a piece of chocolate into a thing of milk over a stove and mixing it until the chocolate has been melted. Colombian hot chocolate is typically not that sweet. It's actually quite bitter, which is how I prefer it. And along with the hot chocolate, I have buñuelos, which is a pastry made from cassava flour and cheese. It's common to dip the buñuelo in the hot chocolate when you eat it. In fact, Colombian hot chocolate is often used to be dipped into for many different pastries when they're being eaten. Think of Colombian pastries and hot chocolate the same way you would think of cookies and milk. It's something that just typically gets dipped in, and it really helps. For me, cookies without milk are really not that great, in the same way that buñuelos without hot chocolate just really aren't that great. And also Pande Buenos are typically eaten with hot chocolate as well. And that's it. I was pretty full, so I headed back to the subway to go to my dorm. Whenever I need another taste of home, I always know that Little Colombia will be waiting for me. It's obviously not the same as being in Colombia with my family or being with my family, but the food reminds me of the people who love me, and eating Colombian food is just comfort that I really, really need. So back to Manhattan, but I'll be back to Little Colombia very soon, and I love it so much and the people there.